Welcome to Stay the Course. We're going to be looking at one of your favorite topics, the topic of sin, particularly the trajectory of sin. I don't think too many people think much about when they sin, where that leads in the long haul. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to pick several different sins, iniquities, as the Bible might describe it in Scripture. One of them is the subject matter of jealousy. Jealousy can actually lead to a person taking somebody else's life. Now let me define jealousy. I want to make sure we understand the difference between jealousy and envy. We'll look at envy in a moment. But jealousy is the fear of being replaced. It's very different than envy. Jealousy is when a quarterback who's been leading the team for the year all of a sudden throws 4 interceptions, and the next thing you know, his replacement comes in and throws 4 touchdowns. He wants to cheer on the sidelines, but deep down, he's feeling that he's being replaced. There's a jealousy. There's just no doubt about it. It naturally comes up in life. We all experience it. It's part of life. When we see somebody getting a job or a position that we think we should have, or somebody's getting praised for something that we think we should be praised for, we feel jealousy. Here's a classic example in Scripture. We think of Saul, King Saul. All of a sudden, David comes back from battle, and he has had this marvelous defeat over the Philistines. And what are the women in the streets saying? Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. And what does Saul say? What more can he have but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day forward. And what did he do? He carried with him a javelin and chased David around for the rest of his life because of jealousy, the fear of being replaced. And so we see that something as small as that, something we think of as just sort of a casual minor sin, if it isn't dealt with, it develops and it breeds more and more anger can be dispelled from it, engendering greater hatred, all due to somebody taking your place. And it's not easy to overcome. Let's switch from that to the subject of envy, because we use the terms interchangeably, but they're not actually the same. Remember, jealousy is the fear of being replaced. Envy is, I want what somebody else has. My next door neighbor's new BMW. Oh, I want to go over and tell them how happy I am, but deep down I'm hoping they get a scratch that day in the car because it's something they have that I don't have. What does that lead to? How many times have you found yourself sitting down with somebody over a cup of coffee and saying, hey, did you see that George and Nancy just bought a BMW? That thing must have cost 60 grand. Where'd they get that kind of money? Why would you waste your money on a car like that? Gee, that money could have been given to the poor. You know, we do these things all the time. We don't like ourselves for it, but we know it's true. It just bubbles out of the olfactory deep down within us. What's interesting is when we look at something like jealousy or envy, we only see it on the surface level. We have no idea what is taking place far deeper down. Because now there are times in a situation like this where they get the BMW and you're thinking, well, how can I make them envious of me? What can I buy? Can I post a trip that we're going to Disney World to make them feel badly? Because now it becomes an inner competition that you never intended until they pulled up into the driveway next door with the flashy BMW. And then you go to bed at night and you can't sleep because you're filled with either jealousy or envy and you hate yourself for it. You're thinking, why do I let this bother me? Why can't I just be happy for their new position or their new car? But the truth is, you can't. It's just a struggle in life. But it isn't just the surface struggle, it's what it leads to. It leads to so many other things that cause so many more problems. This is why I refer to this as the trajectory of sin. Where is this thing headed? For Saul and David, it was an attempted murder, all right? Let's take a look at another one. How about the subject matter of anger, all right? I think most of us would agree to some point we've got a little bit of a fuse. Some people have a shorter fuse than others. Some people get very upset. But generally speaking, when we pick up the newspaper, and I've picked it up recently about this guy, I think it was in Atlanta someplace, went and killed 8 people at these spas. And now he's admitting that he had other issues. The issues had to do with sexual addiction and some other things that I suspect he never would have dreamt would have led to killing people. He never thought, he didn't go to bed thinking that, probably even the night before. But it festered and it went far further than he thought his anger would ever go. And what are the neighbors saying? What are the people that knew him? Well, nicest guy you ever knew. Kind of quiet, but I certainly wouldn't have expected this from him. I remember reading a story, I don't know, this had to have been 5 or 6 years ago, about a woman who was going shopping at Christmas. And her husband always wanted her to protect herself, so she got a license to carry a gun in the glove compartment. Very kind, pleasant woman. But she's trying to get a parking space, and some guy pulls in front of her and steals the space. She gets out, and they exchange a few words. He gets angry. She gets more heated. All of a sudden, she thinks that he's getting out of hand. She reaches in her glove compartment, and she kills him. And when the press started investigating the situation and talked to the neighbors, everybody said, this is the last person we ever would have expected would even have the capability of murdering somebody. But she did. She was going shopping that day to get some presents for her family and is now in jail for murder. Do you think she ever thought that the night before? This is why it's important. It's not a fun subject, it's not a pleasant subject, but it's a subject that everybody has to analyze and take a look at, because we don't know how far jealousy or envy or anger are going to take us. Or it could be gluttony, it could be lust, it could be almost anything. We don't know what the trajectory is. We think we do. We think we have a handle on it. But when we look at Scripture, we see so many projections of when something started and then following the trajectory of it. When we see favoritism in Scripture, for example, Jacob giving Joseph the coat of many colors. Look what that did. His brothers were so jealous that their father loved him more than the other children. Just follow the trajectory of that. That has impacted us to this very day. And so the beauty, I think, of Scripture is it gives a full unfolding revelation of the drama, not only the drama of redemption, but the drama of sin and the trajectory of sin. So when you think that you're dealing with something that appears to be very minor, I've got a short fuse, I'm a little jealous because my neighbor got this job, or they bought this car, they're taking this trip, better keep a close eye on it. Because now we're going to start looking at how do we overcome these things that don't seem to be possible to overcome. And that's next on Stay the Course.